You're listening to Right Sides Radio. I'm your host, Cliff Doherty.
And I'm Evan Starr. We're back.
We're back.
We're back, man. We had a little hiatus.
A little hiatus, a little break.
A little hiatus.
Work kind of got in the way.
Yeah, work got in the way, and then, travel and vacations and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, that's right. We were on vacation last week.
Man,
you and I both.
Yeah. You and I just decided just to jet set.
We're out of here.
We're out of here, man.
Yeah.
We're cashing out of this pop stand.
How was your vacation? Did you have a good time? Refreshed?
It was great. I just sat by the river and I people watched, man. I love to people do some of the damnedest things. I just sat and watched people.
Yeah.
So it was nice. It was really nice.
Yeah.
Man. What about you? What y'all do?
Actually, we headed down to Palm Springs for the weekend. Just a little weekend getay. Got a little place. Yeah.
How the other half lives.
Yeah. Nah, whatever. It's cheap. It's off season, dude. Palm Springs not a place you want to be in July, but they got a pool, and they got a pool. They got a poolside bar. Get yourself some drinks, couple beers, hang out in the water, talk to some folks, meet some people. It's all good. Got a good time. I got a speeding ticket. Or actually, let me take this back. I didn't get a speeding ticket. I got pulled over for speeding. Actually, you know what, dude? I'll tell you this little story. This is kind of timely considering how, the news, the world news today, and things going on in this country and that sort of thing. So check this out. This is a new thing.
In light of current circumstances.
In light of our new segment, in light of current circumstances. So check this out. So we got, the wife, she's got this car, and I'm driving down to Palm Springs on the 10 freeway down here, and I'm, probably about a half hour away from destination, and it's Thursday evening, 7:30, sun's going down, it's nice, and she's, doing her typical thing, telling me to slow down. Does your wife tell you to slow down when you drive?
No, man.
This is going somewhere. Just follow. Come on.
Okay, yeah.
So anyways, laser, right? The laser radar gun, CHP on the side of the road, picks me out of the crowd. I pull over. Well, here's my thing, and this has worked twice for me now in getting out of speeding tickets. Not that I speed that frequently, but roll down the back windows. Roll down the back windows, roll down the two front windows, put your hands up on the steering wheel, and be ready to speak to the officer that decided that you were driving too fast. Every time, dude, I think that gives them a little level of comfort where they feel like, hey, you got my safety in mind, too. It's worked every time, twice now. I'm going 2 for 2.
So, but did you get a ticket?
No, I didn't. So that's no. My wife was pissed. So she was, she was upset. She goes, "I cannot believe you did not get a ticket." I said, "Look it." I go, "Look," and I just explained to the officer. He goes, "What was it? It was an 87 and a 70 is what he clocked me doing."
Wow, man! So that's a legit ticket. I mean, you were legit speeding. That's not like not outside the accuracy of the shark, the freaking shark with the freaking laser beam on its head.
No, yeah. No, it's twice now, though, dude. I've done it twice. Roll down the back windows. They're always tinted, right? Most new cars have those back passenger windows tinted. Roll those down. They can see back there. Either that or the cops saw the pissed look on my wife's face anyways from telling me to slow down 5 minutes prior. So, yeah.
He probably figured putting up with that was going to be a whole lot more punitive than a day in court.
Yeah. No, it was, good stuff. But in the meantime, I have, check this out. So we have street sweepers out here, and I have an old truck that I park out in front of my house. Well, haven't moved in a while, and I got tagged for a parking ticket out there because the street sweeper can't get around it. Or he goes around it, can't get through it, doesn't like the mess in the gutter or something. I don't know, dude. So I got that in the mail, and then my wife goes, "Hey, by the way, you didn't pay your ticket out there." So I got some stuff. I'm running into the law out here. Vehicles and me are not getting along nicely out here.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's my little speeding story. How about you?
I mean, I don't.
You got any speeding tickets?
I don't have
run-ins with the law.
No, I don't. I don't. Well, I don't. There's certain things I can't talk about right now. But
I was going to say, you want to talk about your run-in at the gas station?
But like we were camping. We were camping, and some selfish person decided that they were going to park their vehicle in an empty spot that was designed for an RV.
Right.
So this became, what's really interesting is this kind of became the whodunit of the weekend. I mean, this really became a big deal.
Okay.
I mean, people were mesmerized by whose vehicle this was. So because you wake up one morning, everyone's going to each other's campsites. We're all eating breakfast. We're all talking, and there's this pickup truck parked in this what should be a campsite for a camper, for an RV or something like that. And I got to tell you, it really became the talk of the campsite town. Mm-hmm. One of the local sheriff's deputies showed up. It was actually on Saturday, and they patrol the river on Saturdays,
right?
For personal safety. They're really super nice people.
Make sure nobody's jacking around.
They know that people are going to drink.
Right.
They know that. So they know that's going to happen. Really, they're just kind of looking out for riffraff. Well, I'm talking to this guy, and hands down, the most laid-back, nice guy. Anyways, he starts telling me his history. Well, he can't do anything because he's on private property, so that's what he tells the campsite owner. He's like, you're well within your rights to have the vehicle towed. He said, I can't do it because this is your property.
Right.
He said, but you're well within your rights. So we start talking. Well, come to find out, this guy's got a heck of a background. He worked as a Houston police officer for 20-plus years. He retired there and decided to go up to God's country, like San Marcos area, which it's the hill country of Texas, really pretty, real quiet, real laid back. The whole mentality there is completely different. It's not even, it's like you're not even in the same state. It's almost like you're not even in the same country. And you have to realize this is a part of Texas that has got no burglaries, no homicides, no car theft, nothing. It's just kind of an area of Texas where people just kind of go to chill and be anonymous,
Right.
Super nice guy, man. Super nice guy. And the interesting thing was he actually thanked me before he left for taking the time to talk to him.
Oh, wow.
Which was really interesting because I actually took the time to kind of see if I could help him out. I asked him if he wanted some bottled water. He's in full uniform with a bulletproof vest, and he's got to be hot,
right?
And he's got to be aggravated, that he's got to get involved in. He said, people can just be so selfish. He said, it doesn't make me mad, but people can just be so selfish. He said, right. I'm out here. He said, this is what I'm dealing with.
Right?
And he said, I can't even do anything about it. So I offered him some bottled water, and because I know he was hot, and he actually thanked me for actually taking the time to try to help him out. So people just know that there are good men and women out there. As a matter of fact, the good far outweigh the bad.
Oh, yeah.
So if that's your takeaway from our show, this is what we're going to call Charisma Corner, if you will. The Charisma Corner segment of our show.
Cliff and Evan know how to get along with law enforcement. There you go.
Yeah,
we must be guilty of something.
I think it's just they see the goodness on us. I think is what it is.
Just oozing the goodness.
It's just oozing out of us. Yeah, so that's what it is.
We got a lot.
I get people handing me literature at the gas station. You know all about that. So
Yeah. Well,
you never know what's going to happen.
Oozing with goodness, but you looks like you still could use a little help.
I could probably still use some salvation, and I'm sure that's what he saw was, he looks like a good guy who could probably use a little push over the line, So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow, that's funny stuff. Hey, well, guys, you're listening to Right Sides Radio. We have a call-in line if you guys want to dial in. You know what, Evan? We put out this call-in line. It's funny. We really, you mentioned it last night with the show here. We've been doing this for a little while. We hit it hot and heavy a few months ago and threw all kinds of stuff out there. The phone line's been great for our guests. I was looking back at that the other day. We've had some really good guests on the show so far. And that line, you guys, if you guys are listening to our show live, dial in, man. We'd love to hear from you guys. I do. I would love to hear what your guys' thoughts are on any one of the race weekends, that sort of thing. I get it. Like, we're not collecting phone numbers or anything else like that. I know it's the internet. It's scary. It's phone numbers now. Is it? What's funny is people throw shit out. Stuff. What's it called? Ish. People throw stuff out there on the internet like it's nothing, and then yet when you ask somebody for their phone number, they're like, yeah, never mind. They just don't do it.
Oh, they'll tell you like where they're eating, who they're with, the whole 9 yards. They'll actually tell you a month in advance they're going to be out of town for a week.
Yeah. Let's be good. So Evan and I were talking about this. We'll get to racing stuff later. We got a whole hour show to fill. But
we got plenty of time to talk about racing.
I'm relaxed.
Yeah.
Good Sunday afternoon. We got a race under our belt. I guess we'll get into that a little bit. Some people probably have some mixed feelings about what the race was like today, whether it was exciting or a snooze fest or not.
See, that's the kind of stuff I would like to hear. I would like.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not pretending to be experts about the sport. We would love for you to just call.
Yeah.
And tell us what you thought about the show.
You
tell
know
us what you thought about the race. Tell us what you thought about your favorite driver. Call us and tell us who your driver is.
Yeah.
And why your driver is that driver. Talk about your passion for the sport.
Yeah.
You don't have to call and talk about anything life-changing.
No.
I mean, if you want to call and reveal your
do it.
Yeah.
Say it.
I guess if you want to call and reveal your soul to us, then apparently we're the right people, because cops and people that hand out religious literature at gas stations are drawn to us.
Yeah,
so
they trust us.
So
You can trust us too. So the number's 855-482-7223. If you guys are listening, you want to call in, just say hi or something like that, you're more than welcome to. We'll be here for another 45 minutes or so.
Better part of an hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
what was I saying before that, though? Kind of lost my train of thought there, going off on the phone number.
We really kind of, about how aggressively we kind of pursued this manifest
show.
destiny that we're on. Yeah, this path that we're on.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So we put in a lot of effort around that. The phone calling thing's one thing. It's been fun, and like we were talking yesterday, the digital hiatus, right? And sometimes you got to back yourself off the social media thing. I don't know about you, but there's every now and then you got to kind of step away from it a little bit, observe. Kind of like your vacation, just sit back and observe.
Well, I think you have to. I think when you get heavily involved, and we're definitely ensconced in social media as a society. So
Yeah.
I think that when it directly relates to something you're doing, like Right Sides Only Radio or the RightFrontTire.com, I think when so much of your avocation or your hobby is attached to being involved with social media, I think that you get so tunnel vision that it's good to take a break, back off, and kind of see what the new trends are.
Because they happen quick.
They
right?
happen quick. They change all the time, and
Yeah.
I guess you can kind of get in that rhythm where you kind of get on the Twitter, or you get on. I'm not a big Facebook person, people.
Right,
so
yeah.
don't take that personal, but or you get on Instagram or whatever it is you're doing, and you kind of start to lose focus and direction. So for me, it was much more of I wanted to kind of back off, and I've been doing a lot of scrolling, and I've been liking or favoriting people's tweets, but I really haven't been getting too heavily engaged in it, just because I thought it would be good for me as a person to kind of see what everybody else is talking about.
Yeah.
So, and to be honest with you, getting on Twitter or Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook or whatever your fancy is, or if it's all of those, and actually just kind of, I don't know, participating in what everybody else is doing is actually kind of neat.
Yeah.
Where you don't necessarily feel compelled to have to respond to everything,
or be compelled to drive it,
or be right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's an interesting topic. Because like you said, I mean, doing this kind of thing as a hobby and because we're fans and we like it and, whatever. It is a fun practice, a cool thing to get involved with and that sort of thing. But like I said, my comment to you over the last few months has been, you kind of get enveloped and wrapped up in the Twitter universe and you start believing that anything in reality actually only exists in Twitter. So
right. Oh, that's exactly what I'm pointing at.
Yeah, especially in NASCAR. I'm sure your stream looks a lot like my stream, maybe, and yeah, that's not a comparison joke, by the way.
I know. We have a rim shot waiting somewhere.
Oh yeah, where's that? So, but yeah, no, it's that's the challenge, and especially doing a podcast where you want people to kind of obviously be involved with you or engaged, and you want to engage with them and the content production and all that other sort of stuff, and it's challenging because, like I said, you tend to feel like you're just caught up in that Twitter sphere a little bit. So there's lots of things to learn, though. I've been kind of trying to become more and more of a student of just the podcast world in general. There's a lot of stuff out there, amazing amount of podcasts that go on out in the world.
I listen to a ton of them, and I'm telling you that PETM podcast, Door Bumper Clear, the Nate Ryan NBC Sports or NASCAR podcast are a few that I listen to. pretty religiously. The NASCAR podcast, I go back with that with the professor, so I'm always going to be a fan. But I mean, on the whole, I probably subscribe to about 40 podcasts, and 95% of them have nothing to do with motorsports.
Yeah.
And the great thing about podcasting, and you and I have talked about it, myself and the pregame engineer Sherwin, him and I have talked about it ad nauseum about. The great thing about podcasting is you can pick a subject out of the blue and just talk about it, and you're going to find a following of people who share that same passion. I don't care what it is.
Right.
No matter how creepy it may be or how innovative it may be, you're going to find like-minded people. It's great. So social media has got a good purpose, and it can do good things. But I also think, like anything else, sometimes you got to back off and rebuild. And that's kind of what we've been in the process of doing is not letting social media drive our content and us not feeling like we have to drive the social media content. It's an opportunity for Cliff and I to kind of break away and start reading and doing some research and seeing what else is out there.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, and that's where I've... Sorry, this was a commercial break. It's bad. My wife just walked back in from the store with 2 beers in hand. Dude, see, now that she's following over at Right Sides Radio, make sure you give her props on that, because she gave me a choice, the left hand or the right hand, and I'm like, really? Talk about your train of thought just gone. You can't walk in the studio holding 2 beers in hand and asking me which one you want. It was nice. The thought was nice. I appreciate it.
You got 2 hands. That just needs to be said.
The funny part is there's a half-drank Liller sitting on the desk right here and a full Sculpin. So either the show is going to get really, really good or really, really bad from here on out.
Yeah, it's going to completely deteriorate.
About face. No, but that's really.
I'm sitting with my lonely Carbach Weekend Warrior, my obligatory show beer. I call it the show beer.
The show beer.
The show beer, because I've just been doing nothing but drinking like water pretty much all day, man. I've just been laying low.
That's another good angle there. The podcast around craft brews, a lot of good stuff out there.
It's out there, Cliff. It's out there, man. I'm telling you, you pick it, no matter how creepy or how deep down the rabbit hole you want to go.
Yeah,
and there's somebody out there talking about it.
Yeah.
What ought to scare you is the things that people aren't talking about. That's what ought to scare you.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we have some racing to talk about, Evan.
We did actually 2 races happened this weekend.
Yes, they did.
The Xfinity race, which I don't know if that should have come off as like a huge shocker. I'm not even sure that.
Interesting topic. Let's pause there for a second. Kyle Busch, right? So I try to. Here's the deal. All right, I need to take off one of my 2 hats here. Either I want everybody to listen to my podcast hat, so I'm going to be nice, right? Or I'm going to put on my real fan hat and standing in my garage watching Kyle Busch win yet another Xfinity race, And I kind of want to go with just my general fan hat where I'm standing in the garage going, really, dude, come on. It disappoints me a little bit. Just because it's like, it's not anything, it's not a big deal to you either. That was kind of his comments yesterday. It's cool to do.
A fangulist will definitely go completely crazy for anything. But see, here's my deal. Mm-hmm. This isn't a negative comment aimed towards the demolition of Kyle Busch as an institution.
I don't want to. I'm not demolishing him, though. Don't get me wrong.
No, I'm actually sticking up for you.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
To me, this is more of a fan of the sport and saying I wouldn't care who it was. If it was Dale Jr., if it was Kevin Harvick, if it was Kurt Busch, if it was any of these notable elite-level Cup Series drivers going down to Xfinity and just whipping on people week in and week out.
Right.
It leaves no. To me, it just doesn't. It would, in a way, it would be kind of like Roger Clemens going down and playing AAA.
Yeah.
Hey, Roger Clemens just threw a no-hitter.
Right.
In AAA. It's like, well, no kidding.
Yeah.
Because the two because the difference between AAA and the big game, the big show, are so far apart that it's not even funny.
Right.
So Kyle going down to Xfinity and whipping on 2/3 of the field are really just kind of hanging on to hope anyways, as far as sponsorship, and a lot of them are really struggling just to keep their cars together.
Right.
So Kyle going down and just whipping on them, to me, is just not really like, it's not even newsworthy. It's kind of like it's an expectation. I expect an elite level driver to go down to a lesser series and dominate. That's an expectation of mine.
Yeah, sure.
So, but, I mean, and that's not a knock against Kyle. And that's not a knock. It's got nothing to do with Kyle Busch. That's got to do with the way that my brain is wired.
I think it detracts a little, though, for those that are in competition, especially for the chase this year. I mean, I get it. They're still doing all that in the midst of watching Kyle Busch lead the whole race.
Well, I mean, to his credit, he dominates in anything that he gets in.
Yeah,
he dominates. So, I mean, I'm not hating on the guy.
But we know that
he can win.
We know that.
Yeah, he can win anywhere. Yeah. But I guess at this point in my life as a fan, I'm kind of like, dude, I get it.
I want to see something new.
Yeah, I get it. We know that you're going to just lay waste to anybody you race against. So instead of tricycle racing with the neighborhood kids, just stay in the Cup Series. Right. And he dominates in the Cup Series too.
That's awesome. It's like Dad walking out on the playground to play dodgeball with the 10-year-old, right?
Yeah, and I know it's a real unpopular. This conversation has been going around for a long time, and you almost hate to get into it because you almost can't win, because it always sounds like you're like dogging on someone's driver. It's like, no, I don't care who it is. Really, the driver is irrelevant. It's the premise of a person who is performing at this level of a professional sport going down, and apparently breaking records being like any kind of a big deal. It's like, I mean,
especially your own. I mean, I read his post-race interview. Actually, Kathy wrote a really good piece on her Facebook page.
With putting outside the box.
Yeah. I read that. Go read that. It was actually pretty good. I liked her angle for the whole thing, and captured Kyle's comments really well of just saying, he's kind of like, this was fun. It's cool to do. This is what records are for. Somebody else is going to come behind me eventually and have to break these records.
Not as long as he's still racing in the series. No one's going to come close.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to be standing in front of Kyle like that and listening to him say something like that and scratching your head going, well, but wait a minute. It's you breaking your own records, and at this point, you're setting the bar, and you keep moving the bar, which is fine.
Right? I have to say, though, he is pretty magnanimous about it in the respect that he really doesn't make a very big deal of himself. So, I mean, when they asked the question about the records yesterday, I believe, he really was kind of aloof about the whole thing. He really didn't kind of make a big deal of it. And I think in his own mind, I think even he thinks, well, duh. I mean, he's not going to say that.
Right.
But,
that's kind of...
If you're Kyle Busch or Kevin Harvick or Dale Jr. or you're any one of Tony Stewart or any one of these people, and you're racing in Xfinity, and you're just smoldering the competition, I'm sure in your mind you'd be like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but, I'm Dale Jr., Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, whatever.
Right.
So it's got nothing to do with Kyle Busch. Unfortunately, that seems to be the spin people will put on it, is that, well, you're hating on my driver. It's like, no, just take the name and the face away from it, and let's just talk about...
Sure, it could be Keselowski.
Yeah,
it could be anybody, right? I mean, it could be Logano out there. It could be Harvick out there.
And to me, and this is my personal opinion, and this doesn't have to be the opinion of anybody else, and I don't expect anyone else to feel the way that I feel. We all have different viewpoints.
We're all friends here. Go ahead.
Yeah,
you're safe.
When I watch the Truck Series or the Xfinity race, or for that matter, AAA or Rookie League baseball or Farm League hockey, I want to see a bunch of struggling kids battling it out.
Yeah.
That's why I watch it.
Yeah.
I want to see who the next big thing is going to be.
Right.
And that, like I said, that's not a knock against anybody. That's when I watch minor league sports and I'm not saying that Xfinity is minor league, quote unquote,
Right.
but I have a hard time denying the fact that it is that Xfinity and the Truck Series has an awful lot to do with young, raw talent sharpening their skills and trying to set the stage for a career in the Cup Series.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see.
And the aggressive nature of that field, I mean, a lot of those young drivers out there. I mean, Daniel Suarez, man, he was looking great on Saturday. Obviously Eric Jones, but the fact is that those guys they're driving the heck out of those cars on their race weekends. And as a fan, like I said, the whole fangelism thing, it's a little upsetting to see them not get the attention or the victory lane party that they probably deserve for all the effort that they're putting in. Not to say this is coming easy to Kyle Busch either. It's not. Look at Brad Keselowski, finished behind Eric Jones in third, So even though there's a Cup driver in the series, it's amazing. I was actually watching that race with Brad. I mean, he was pulling just as hard as he would in a Cup car, but at the end of the day, it's the better drivers, obviously, that win races, and it doesn't, there's some element of that where it doesn't really matter whether you're a veteran Cup driver or you're an Xfinity up and coming, It's just hard to get my head around that sometimes where, like I said, I just, I'm done seeing Kyle Busch. All right, dude, there's 8 stickers on the door jam. Let's go.
I know. They're gonna have to create a whole new post just for his win stickers.
And at the end of the Xfinity season, we got Kyle Busch in the checkered winner flag sponsored car.
Well, and what really bothers me is at the end of the season, what we see is a champion crown.
Sure.
That we haven't really seen or heard of the entire season.
Yeah.
They may or may not have won a race.
Right.
And that's, well, of course, they've started the chase format now, but the way I look at it is, man, Eric Jones sure did work just as hard as everybody else. Or Daniel Suarez. It would have been great watching Eric Jones doing a burnout or watching Daniel Suarez do it. That's how I look at it because, well, obviously, what the right front tire does.
Yeah.
That's in my wheelhouse. Those are the kids that I really admire and I appreciate. Yeah. And it's not a knock against the Cup Series level guys, but you know what? They've got lines and lines and lines of people that throw rose petals at their feet and admire them. So I'm all about giving the young people some love. So
well, we won't flog that horse forever. Kyle Busch, I love you, brother. It's cool to watch you race every week. I mean, you are a dominant driver to contend with, matter what the series is, and like everybody knows, no matter what you get yourself behind. But like I said, it'd be nice to, I don't know, constrain or limit the involvement a little more through the series. But, NASCAR's tried some new things with the chase format coming over from the Cup side to the Xfinity side this year. That's new. But, I mean, it would be kind of cool, I think, to at least try to keep it somewhat holistic to, those drivers that are in that series so that they can continue to perform. And, certainly they get that experience from some of the veteran drivers, and there's things to be learned. And there's obvious, we've talked about this on the show before, that there's knowledge transfer from running an Xfinity race before you run the Cup race, and
sure. Oh, there is undeniably, and
because there is no
necessarily relate, but
that's another topic I want to get into sometime before the end of the season. Is the whole? I think I'll just drop it right here. NASCAR's got to give back a little bit of testing for teams, man. I'm not liking the way this is working because I really feel like the effort or the attention now has been shifted over into the Xfinity series and that sort of thing for a lot of test and tune type stuff. As a matter of fact, dude, I'll even go. I know you and I have been talking about this with Joey Logano last couple weeks. Joey, the way he's been struggling, he's been fairly dominant. He was more dominant earlier in this season in terms of at least starting and finishing positions over Brad Keselowski. Joey's testing and tuning something out there, dude. I'm telling you right now. You can smell it. The last couple of weeks.
Well, they're getting... I think NASCAR has recognized that you can't just throw the caveat out and say, okay, kids, no more testing. They have been testing a little bit more. I also think that these engineers and the drivers, let's face it, I think these engineers are incredibly smart. you'd have to think that now that we've got a substantial part of the season behind us now, believe it or not, I think we're, within 8 races of the regular season being over already.
Yeah.
I can't believe how fast this season has flown by.
Yep.
But I think they're incredibly smart. I think that this has been something they've been working on since before the start of this season. What's been incredible, I'll give some props to the NASCAR R&D Center and Goodyear, is the drivers have really, with an exception of Kentucky, which was going to be a crapshoot regardless, because I don't know that anybody really knew what they were getting. So Goodyear threw a pretty hard tire at that track, and I know that there was a lot of negativity kind of espoused by the drivers, but with an exception of that, the drivers have given a lot of accolades to how good the tires have been this season.
Yeah.
So
unless you're Tony Stewart.
A lot of that obviously has,
except for today.
He's got a complete hatred for Goodyear because he came from an IndyCar background.
I think he got a bad deal on mud tires on his truck or something. Tony seems to have a bone to pick with Goodyear.
Yeah, you go back in his history, and he's got some great outtakes against Goodyear. But today, that's why today his gushing for Goodyear was really came out of left field. You know, it was like,
much different than Kansas.
If you get a compliment from Tony Stewart, you did something right. I can tell you that.
What was the comment last week? They brought the hardest thing that you could find to Kansas or something like that? That was funny.
Yeah.
No, good old Tony.
To Kentucky.
Or, I'm sorry, Kentucky.
Kentucky, yeah. Like I said, I don't know. I don't know, even after the tire test, and here's what I had heard and what I had read, was that even after the testing that they did, they were still kind of in a pickle about what they were going to do tire-wise. So I think they decided that they would rubber up, I guess would be the term. And
you know what, though, dude?
At least give them a tire that they thought stood a chance.
But check this out. So we didn't do a show last week after Kentucky. They both start with K. But we didn't do the show last.
I can see how it's easily confused.
Right, K.
We didn't do a show after Keselowski.
After Keselowski. There you go. That's even better. So we didn't do last week's show, but what'd you think of that race? Did you watch it? Did you see the whole thing? You're river rafting, making friends with law enforcement.
I was incapable of watching it.
Yeah. So I didn't.
Incapable.
Honestly, I didn't think the racing was that bad. I was actually pleasantly surprised by how well the track seemed to deliver. I mean, it was great to see, them have to drive these cars. I don't know about you, like even today, the racing action that I think we're starting to see now, whether it's the lower downforce or it's the tire compound or whatever, or it's a repave, but look at Kyle Busch seemed to have had that race in hand today. And look at how many leaders there were. And I mean, there's so much to talk about today's race with Truex. Dude, I swear to God, if that guy, I'm not standing next to him out in the open. I mean, it's just they're just getting struck by anything and everything that could go wrong seems to be happening to that 78 team. However, despite those setbacks, every week they keep coming back, which looks like just stronger and stronger. That team's, to me, has got the tenacity and the drive to get itself into that chase and perform, obviously, as well as they possibly can into that chase. But I'm telling you, Truex, despite all those setbacks, dude, if he didn't have those, to me, he's having a phenomenal year. Because every week they're extremely consistent.
That's a championship, in my opinion. That is as close to a championship caliber team. Mm-hmm. Bear in mind, the guy has already won a race this year, right? So he's already punched the proverbial ticket.
Yeah.
So he's gotten that behind him.
Sure.
I look at him and almost kind of compare him in a way to Kevin Harvick, who has only won one race this season.
Right.
And even though he's part of a bigger team in a way, so is the 78. 78 has got obviously a fantastic alliance with JGR, and it has obviously paid dividends. Today they said point blank they didn't know what to bring to the track, and guess what they did? They built the the 19 car an identical setup as the 19 car. It's pretty amazing,
Boom.
and they talked about it today during the race. It's pretty amazing when you can take someone else's setup and beat them with it.
Right?
Well, I mean, that's the reality.
Yeah.
Is he was
barely
he did
though, dude.
better with that same package.
I'm pretty sure.
But they see.
Go ahead.
They seem to get followed by like anvil storms.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they just, and every single one of their mishaps is tragic. So, when you talk about pit stop strategy at Texas Motor Speedway, completely ruins the entire night for them. Or you talk about, and I understand there's not a whole lot you can about it. When a shifter breaks, if you remember, Hendrick Motorsports was just rife with shifter problems
every
for a
weekend.
while. There's nothing you can do about that. And it really has more to do with how you work around the issue that proves kind of what you're really made of. And the fact that they behaved themselves so well, they powered through it, they suffered some disgusting looking restarts, which is just kind of part of the game.
Sure.
But in the end, they pulled it all together. He made up like 10 or 11 spots before the race was over with. Yep. And then when the race was over with, he climbed out of the car and he kind of went, what are you going to do? That to me is a championship caliber team, not just in personality, but in actual practice and performance.
Sure. But I'm telling you, dude, I'm feeling like once they hit the chase, if they haven't vetted out all those things that are, whether it's pit road, speeding penalties, which we could have made a topic out of for tonight,
passing on the left,
passing on the left, broken shifters, roof, illegal roof flaps. I mean, they've been hammered from day one, all through this season. But I'm hoping that they're, whether those are deliberate or cheating or trying new things or whatever, I'm hoping once we get into the chase that they've finally found their moment and can advance through each one of those segments through the chase. Because at this point, dude, I hate to see Martin Truex walk away in this season and not have made it to Homestead. And last year, dude, he did such a great job, even though he was still in a Chevrolet. But, certainly that alliance with Joe Gibbs Racing is producing some stuff. I don't know if you saw the post-race show today with Joe Gibbs out there on the NBC post-race, but Joe Gibbs was mentioning, come Monday morning when they do those debrief calls, and, Martin's very much a part of that, and they had asked him about, what did Furniture Row bring to the table? What did Joe Gibbs Racing learn from them? And it was cool to hear Joe Gibbs speak of the fact that, like you just said, bringing an identical copy of the 19 car, So the transfer of information back and forth, it's funny, were we talking about this before the show about Kenseth possibly being done for Cup racing or something like that? Do we expect to see Matt retire, make an announcement at the end of the season or something like that? I'm really hoping that Truex ends up in Joe Gibbs. I think that would be a phenomenal move on his part if he could. So we'll have to see. But like I said, I just really feel like that Furniture Row, dude, maybe they're just trying a bunch of crap and going to get it finally figured out and going into the chase that I'm hoping they're the team to contend with.
I think that they will be, and
it's going to be an uphill climb.
Well, you have to understand. this is the first year. This is the first year for a one-car team with a new manufacturer. So I think, considering the circumstances, their performance is nothing shy of stellar. But
they did the same thing under the Chevy banner, dude. Last year they were strong. They weren't as strong as they are this year, but I would argue over the last 2 years they've been incredibly strong and very much on their way.
Yeah, I'm telling you, there's something missing there.
I'm going to guess there are the R&D for Joe Gibbs Racing.
I'm telling you, I personally think that Toyota has, behind the scenes, been outspending and putting in more hours and drinking more coffee and doing. I just think that they've been doing their due diligence. They've been working behind the scenes because they've been the underdogs since they came into the sport.
Right.
They came in with no experience at this level of motorsports. These other teams, the Ford and the Chevrolets, and even the Chrysler products have been embedded in the sport since its inception. Toyota was the underdog coming in.
Right.
And they have finally hit their stride. They have brought a motor to the table, a reliable motor to the table. Finally, that was an Achilles heel for them, was the longevity of their engines.
Right.
I think that JGR has found something with the setup of the chassis and the suspensions that is obviously something that nobody else has found.
Yeah.
I think that they've kind of hitched their wagon to a rocket ship. I don't think Martin Truex has to go anywhere. I think it'd be nice. I guess in my opinion, it's like, okay, so how much better could it possibly get? I mean, the guy he's won a race. He's going to the chase. He's got a car that is
Eric Jones.
He's got a car that is something to watch every weekend. He's a driver and a team that is being talked about on the lips of everybody come race day.
Yeah.
And that's a lot for a small team based out of Colorado.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, they're a Cinderella story, and I see them winning a championship at some point. I don't know that it's this year. I mean, I don't know, but I have a hard time kind of picking that situation for a championship run.
Well,
but then if you look at the four team, the four team was in this predicament 2 years ago with Kevin Harvick going into the chase, where their crew completely fell apart. I mean, it just like all the wheels, pardon the pun, just kind of fell off the wagon.
Yep.
And they ended up, that's when they brought the 14 team over to the 4-car team for a run at the chase. Well, now guess what? Here we are 2 years later, championship caliber team. They're going into the chase, or they punched their ticket, so to speak.
Right.
And now it seems like weekend in, weekend out, it's 13 and 14 second pit stops for an elite level team. I mean, so I don't know. So I can't necessarily say that the 78's going through is any more unusual or any more. What I can say about the 78 team is their pit stops are typically flawless.
Yeah.
They at least have that going for them. Yeah. So,
it kind of highlights a story I was following through the week last week about with Stewart Haas going over to Ford next year in 2017, and is that disconnect starting to happen between Hendrick and Stewart Haas and the sharing of information, at least from a Chevy standpoint? Is that why we're starting to see kind of, Hendrick and Stewart Haas are both still doing very well. There's no question, there's no doubt about that. But, we've seen Harvick being so dominant up to a certain point, and, he's still in there, like you alluded to before we started the show tonight. He's still very much the points leader. But is that kind of an issue where we're starting to see that disconnect between the Stewart Haas and the Hendrick Motorsports and the information that's getting shared and the help that's getting shared from Chevy? We all know this. Look at these are multi-million-dollar operations, right? So it's not like Chevy just pulled up stakes and decided to stop helping people, right?
Oh, no.
But at the end of the day, there's something there, right? I mean, there's something there where you would expect that, Joe Gibbs Racing, we talked about this on the show before as fans, we all see it, week in and week out for the better part of the season. We've been expecting to see Joe Gibbs Racing very dominant, right? And we still do, with Matt Kenseth winning yet another, his second race of the season under the Joe Gibbs Racing team banner. It's all there. All the parts and pieces are there. I find it interesting, out of an 8-car alliance under the Chevy umbrella, that any one of those 8 are still, dramatically plagued by whatever. I mean, here you had Jimmy Johnson, first pole of the year, dude, in July.
Yeah.
I mean, Jimmy's not sealing the deal.
I don't know. I know that
Jimmy's not sealing.
There's something to be said for everybody in the Gibbs organization or affiliation, for that matter, has won at least one race. Martin Truex and all the other Joe Gibbs
or a
associated
couple,
drivers,
or a few,
and everybody except for Denny Hamlin has won multiple races now.
Yep.
So,
well, Denny was on it today.
Speaks volumes.
Denny was on it today, man. He was broken. He was taking a chance.
But you know what? So was Harvick, and so was Logano, and so was there. Let me explain my philosophy. You only have to win once to get into the chase, but you're going to have to win to clinch the championship.
Yep.
So it really, as far as I'm concerned, okay, great, you won 6 months ago. That's fantastic. That's beautiful. But we're getting to the period now where the dominance is starting to show. It's really starting to glare, and the frailties of all the other teams is starting to show as well. So it's kind of one of those literal cream rising to the top.
You think so?
This is a dangerous time to build momentum for a lot of people out there who are in search of a chase berth. If you haven't won a race yet, your life is only going to get exponentially more difficult from this point on. Because now, the teams that have won, I think the heat's going to be turned up for them to continue racing and continue winning and squeeze anyone who could potentially block them later on in the chase. That's part of the game, too. Part of the game isn't just winning and making sure you're in the chase. Part of the game is making sure you're not.
Well, yeah, and Joe Gibbs kind of alluded to that in the post-race show today. He said, you guys know how crazy this gets once the chase starts. You know, we were all, I'm sure most of our listeners and fans of the sport were, you know, kind of sitting there clenching their teeth at the last few restarts. I mean, even in the booth, they were commenting they were expecting, you know, with less than 10 laps, you know, Steve Letarte basically saying, you know, this ain't over. We're going to get another caution out of this before the end of the race, right? Yeah. So there's, you know, there's still that. We're still very much amped up into that next, you know, with the chase coming up. So, you know, even though we see all this dominance happening, whether it's from Joe Gibbs, we kind of see the Penske thing going on, dude. At the end of the day, I mean, you know, you talked about it before the show, which everybody who's listening to the show at this point already know. Matt Kenseth failed laser inspection after the race, right? So, you know, the tinfoil's going to come out. They cheated. You know, I can't imagine. Think about this, dude. You fail tech inspection on laser before the race, and then you do it after the race. I got to ask somebody. So here's another one for the notebook. Are the tolerances pre-race versus post-race the same? They're the same, right?
I don't know.
You would expect so, right? Do they allow for variances in the post-race because they know that they're going to get banged up?
I would think that you would have to keep them the same for one reason and one reason only. I think that you would have. That would be the only way that you could determine accurately if someone's manipulated the setup.
Yeah, but dude, come on! What happens during the course of a race that could cause you to fail that if it's so difficult to make it through in the beginning of the race?
I don't have any idea. I don't know. I don't think it's a big deal. I think what's going to wind up happening is he's going to get a slap on the wrist. He's going to get hit with a fine and a penalty. And
I know.
I mean, super double secret NASCAR probation is nothing. I mean,
obviously.
I think moving forward, I think we're going to see some rules regarding geometry, some more strict rules in regards to skew and. Because I honestly believe that Joe Gibbs, I'm not saying it's illegal, because by current rules, it might not be. I think Joe Gibbs has found the threshold, and I think they have worked themselves up against that threshold better than anybody else.
Right.
Because it appears to me, to the naked eye, that they can do whatever they want on the track with those cars. That's what it appears to me. And it can't all be just the person sitting behind the wheel.
What do you mean, though, in terms of the setup, or really?
Oh, absolutely. I think that they have found something, and obviously it's legal. Apparently it's borderline,
right.
or it's one of those things. You know, NASCAR does a lot of things. I think where they establish, I don't know, neutral zones. So they have like a real vague, open to interpretation policy or rule. And then what they do is any time a driver, a team blatantly steps across that line, they go, oh, because basically what has to happen is a team has to kind of cheat for NASCAR to even know that they need to make it a rule. So
right.
NASCAR comes back and goes, oh, well, I guess we should have said something about that, because that ain't okay. You know?
Well, you know, and that's the funny part about watching these races each week and becoming more and more aware of rules. You know, again, going back to the Truex thing about, you know, passing people on pit road and that sort of thing. I mean, you know, all day long, all night long, we can sit here and beat up all that stuff that, you know, whatever doesn't seem like an issue. But, you know, as we progress through this, I would guess, like what you're saying is that with them continually modifying, I mean, we've seen everything through the course of this year so far. We've seen flared fender skirts. I saw that at Kentucky. Kyle Busch, of all people, started the race. You go back and look at the beginning of that race, his skirt was already flared before he started the race to some degree. But the thing is, they're banging on the ground, they're low to the ground. I don't know whether, you know what I'm saying? I mean, so it happens. Whatever. As fans, we get all caught up in this rule thing. I'm still pissed. I can't get a watered down version of the rule book.
Yeah.
Did you see the new car designs? They got new car designs for next year. They can give you all that information.
I don't get too terribly frustrated about it, because I think in my heart of hearts I know that A, rules are meant to be broken. B, every single team out there is they're kind of, in a way, I kind of liken it to a 2-year-old. I mean, they're going to, if you tell them no,
they're going to do it anyway.
Slowly extend their arm out while you're watching them, just to see how far they're going to get. And that to me that's an expectation of a team that you're paying that much money to.
It's an expectation until it leads to a win of a race, or it's consistent and it's happening every week, or it causes you to win a championship. Then it's acceptable. It depends on what the ultimate outcome is, how acceptable it is.
To me, it's acceptable if the rules don't clearly state it's illegal. That to me, hey man, that's NASCAR is the one running the show. Yeah. So if they are allowing teams to guide them, well, then that's just the way it's going to be. And you know what? I'm not a bit mad. It's kind of like the whole thing that happened at the beginning of the season with the 78 car and we have no idea how that flap wound up. Yeah. It's like, come on, man. I'd have a lot more respect for you if you just kind of snickered and said, well, shoot, we almost got to man up and just admit that you cheated. It's no big deal. We all know you're doing it.
Why? So, well, I don't get that offended by what the teams do in the realm of cheating. I mean, obviously it's getting caught for the cheating is what happens, right? I mean, I haven't seen, I think Harvick made the comment this in the pre-race or whenever, I thought I heard him say this was, or somebody said it, that week after week people are doing what Truex got burned for. You know what I'm saying? Passing on pit road. Well, Harvick seemed to take the most exception with it. But the fact is if they're doing it every week, that we all know this, everybody's cheating in one capacity or another in order to gain that advantage. It's funny. Well, it's funny to me that once somebody gets popped for the cheating, then it becomes a big issue.
I have a problem with obviously we'll have to break off of this at some point and then move on. We'll move on to what we know is on everybody's mind. Pardon the pun, but
go for it, because we only got 6 minutes left.
Well, what frustrated me about the pit road penalty is that I think that Martin had a genuine reason to be perplexed. Mm-hmm. So because that's a spot where the ambiguity in the rules left a loophole for the drivers, and you can't do that. You can't do that in sports. You can't leave a loophole like that, and so today they clarified it. You can't break the plane.
Yeah.
Okay, of the lead car.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we know where that's agitating to me. Is if you're gonna, they just out of the blue they decide they're gonna drop the hammer on Martin Truex and leave all the drivers going, wait a minute, we do that every weekend. I mean, what did he do? What did the guy even do? So,
because to your point, that's the thing, is the teams or the drivers are highlighting that there's a gray area. What that ends up equating to is NASCAR turning that gray area into a black and white area.
Which they do so at will, which kind of drives the, hey guys, be consistent. I don't mind you penalizing people for breaking the rules. Define the rules and enforce it universally. I know they do as good a job. I know that they try real hard, and I'm not hammering on the organization.
No, not at all.
When you make it an entire season, or for that matter, when you've been watching NASCAR for 20 years,
right,
and they nail someone for a rule like that, it's like, man, I've probably seen that a million times.
Yeah.
So they decided I'm not saying it's a bad rule. I'm not trying to tell NASCAR how they ought to make rules.
No.
My request is make them consistent, and universally dole out accountability for people who break them. That's all I ask.
Well, but as fans, and I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I guess as fans, we have to be willing to accept the fact that there is a litany of gray areas still that nobody has brought to the surface, and we have to be able to go through the fact that once it gets brought to NASCAR's attention, or they go, well, wait a minute, we have a rule on this. Well, what does the rule say? Because obviously, they're having discussions with drivers or with teams or whatever to question them on the validity or the definition of their rule. Then they have to define it, right? So that's what we end up seeing is that we find these gray areas. It gets brought to NASCAR's attention, and then we got to get the black and white on it. That's basically what it boils down to.
Well, we're on the topic of gray areas. Yeah. Let's talk about
the brain. The brain.
Let's talk about gray matter. In particular, I know that people have been inundated with this, and I'm sorry that we're going to broach this, but I almost feel remiss if we didn't at least broach on.
Yeah, it's a big topic.
Not just the fact that it was Dale Jr., or maybe the fact that it was Dale Jr., but the fact that that he is clearly taking, it appears to me that Dale is clearly making a statement about TBIs, in particular about concussions or neurocognitive issues. Mm-hmm. This is kind of a big deal because, like Cliff, you and I talked about it before the show, that this has not just been taboo in NASCAR. Concussions have been something that have been somewhat the boogeyman in almost every other professional sport where it's prevalent. And by the way, people, these issues, concussions, TBIs, are prevalent in every single sport that you probably watch on TV, whether you know it or not. And it's a really big deal. It really actually is a much bigger deal. I know a lot of times people think, the body heals itself and it just kind of goes away and you got a good, nice, hard, stiff bump on the head and, over time it just gets better. Well, they're actually starting to find that you do some amount of damage every time you receive a concussion.
Right.
And NASCAR has done a lot of work. They basically started their requirement for neurocognitive baseline testing in 2014. But if you look at what NASCAR has done as a whole in the sport to reduce the amount of energy that is transferred to drivers, they have made leaps and bounds from safer barriers to the Hans device to the padding that they have around the heads on the seats. They've really come a long way, but Dale basically sticking his neck out, pardon the expression, and saying, "Hey, look, this is what's going on."
Yeah.
I can't get behind the wheel of the car. And the funny thing about it, I guess the kind of scary thing about it is he really has given no indication as to when he's going to get back behind the wheel of a car.
Yeah.
That's the missing. Maybe that's the empty box that I think has me kind of concerned is.
Yeah, what does that really mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah, all week long, once the announcement was made that Junior was suffering from the symptoms of concussions, I guess, maybe something recently like Michigan or something like that had kind of brought that on again. But, you look at that and think, especially somebody who, he's obviously been very public in his involvement with those types of injuries and that sort of thing. I think, getting out of the car to be dismissed to take care of himself. I think that's huge, right? We talked about this before the show a little bit. The fact that, in professional sports, we get it when there's he's retired now, but Kobe or, any major sports figure who's suffering from injury and they're sitting on the bench and they're missing games, it's a little different. It's a little different when they're doing it in motorsports, in racing. Alex Bowman obviously did a great job. Sam Hornish Jr. Sitting in a few weeks ago did a great job. But this really highlights the fact that, especially for somebody such a huge fan base like Junior, missing races due to this, I think it's good for the sport overall, and especially the injuries that come along with this type of racing, despite the fact that we're so much safer than we've ever been. That special that they ran on the broadcast today to highlight those things that you had talked about with the Hans device and the padded seating and all this other stuff, all great stuff. We watched some epic wrecks, whether it's at Talladega and the super speedway stuff, all those things that are happening, but at the same time, there's still a net effect on those injuries. And like you said, whether they're up front now or they come up later on in life, maybe this is something that causes Dale Jr. to take a little bit of a look at, where am I at? What's my quality of life? What happens if I continue to get wrecked out, for the next, 2, 3, 5 years? What does that do on you as a person, physically?
Yeah, that's the problem with brain injuries, though, is you really don't.
You don't know.
I think that there's so much that has been unanswered, and so much that people don't know about TBI that I guess in my mind, pardon the expression, obviously, that would be, for me, that would be the real X factor. It'd be, hey, not only do I want to, but can I really continue in this direction, knowing full well that a lot of my future remains kind of vague at this point. I don't really know. A lot of professional athletes and people who have been watching professional sports for a long time. I'm a big sports fan. You're a big sports fan. So that a lot of times when these folks, when they retire, they kind of vanish. Not so much with NASCAR. Those drivers always seem to be very prevalent in the sport because they're so necessary. Having them around is so necessary. But so often, a lot of these drivers or a lot of these athletes, they kind of drift off, and you don't really see them again unless they become an announcer or broadcaster or a Hall of Fame thing, or they're doing some type of public event or fundraiser. A lot of them just kind of disappear, and a lot of times you start hearing about things that happen with them down the road that seem very uncharacteristic of the person that you saw when they were at the height of their glory. And I think a lot of that has to do with injuries that they received while they were. It's got to take a huge toll on the body, not just the concussions, but the totality, kind of all the energy that has been unleashed on your body. Yeah. It's got to take a toll.
And especially these types of injuries. I mean, we're sitting here, we didn't really get much into it with Tony Stewart today. Second place finish. He's got a win under his belt. He's fighting hard, obviously, racing hard to keep himself in contention for that chase, trying to scoop up the last bit of points that he needs to stay there. The fact is that, physical or injuries, like Kyle Busch with the leg, but when you get into this brain stuff, we really don't know, what the net long-term effects of that is and what that's likely to produce, we've watched these athletes, recover from these injuries in arguably some amazing quick fashion. Watching Kyle Busch come back last year. And to be honest with you, dude, knowing back injuries, I was shocked to see Tony Stewart come back as quick as he did. So that's really cool. I think the speculation early on was this upcoming race in Indianapolis of when he could possibly make a comeback. So it's great to see that, physically, the back, the arms, the legs, that sort of thing is obviously much easier to recover from in the short term, but these long-term effects of what brain injuries bring us. But again, this is the sport that like you said, it happens in any sport. It's obviously very visible to us as NASCAR fans. So it'll be interesting to see what we get out of somebody like Dale Jr. in the long term, I think, and what does that do to his racing career? All the luck to him. Hopefully not much. We want to see him around forever and ever, but it certainly highlights the issue and the problem and what that does to drivers.
I hope if it does anything, I hope that and inevitably it will be a catalyst of some sort for change, because Dale is that person in NASCAR. I mean, he is definitely an ambassador.
Sure.
I hope that maybe it sends a clear signal out to the young up-and-comers, or to even some of the veterans that are kind of hiding in the shadows that, hey, it's a new era. We can come out, we can talk about this stuff. We can go seek go seek treatment. We can support each other. We need to bring this to the surface because you can predict bone growth. You can predict a broken leg healing with some level of accuracy. There's so much that's unknown about the workings of the brain,
right?
And there's enough of a question about what the long-term effects are that I would be deeply concerned. And Dale Jr. has had, from what I heard today, 3 documented cases of concussions.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's varying degrees of severity. I don't know. I mean, I don't know a lot about it. But I do know that I unfortunately read about and see shows about the impact that it has on professional fighters and football players. And you read about it and see about it all the time. I mean, you see athletes taking their own lives, turning to alcoholism and drug addiction and all kinds of, just because it's so unpredictable. And I'm not saying that that's Dale Jr.'s destiny. I want people to realize that this is a viable medical condition that needs attention. And I think Dale is raising his hand and saying, you know what, I'll be that guy.
Yeah. Which is great.
I'll be that guy that will stand up and let's have the conversation about this.
And the plus side of that is what NASCAR learns. You know, hopefully that drives innovation in some element of future safety and that sort of thing. You know, that's what we want to see as fans, is that, you know, we continue to innovate on that safety side, and that we can continue to watch the sport that we all love and enjoy, and keep our drivers safe out there as well. So
absolutely. In the end, they're all these drivers and football players and baseball players, more importantly, of course, to us, since this is a NASCAR-related podcast, are these drivers. When it gets down to brass tacks, when they take off that suit and that helmet, they're people just like you and I.
Yep.
And we really, really need to try to focus on that we really need to be concerned about what their quality of. They've brought us so much entertainment and fun and exhilaration.
Right.
But, you know, we need to be unselfish enough to realize that we need to be able to give them back the same level of appreciation and hopefully some quality of life when they walk away. So hopefully fans realize that we really need to give them back something in return. And in this case, I wish Dale Jr. was listening, but I would tell him, you know, how much I appreciate the fact that he's willing to be so forthcoming and open, honest, and humble about his situation. I know it's not easy at that level because there's so much pressure and they've got so much riding on their health, and I mean they're a cash cow. Let's face it; it sounds horrible, but there's a lot riding on these people.
And and he certainly like you said. I mean, there's a lot to offer there to the sport. It's great that he's highlighting this, and like I said, it's going to have positive outcomes in the long term anyway. So, you know, hats off to Junior for raising this, making us aware. See what we get out of it.
Absolutely.
That's a show, Evan. Man, I miss this. No more vacations. We still got a lot of summer left.
We should do it more often. We got a new company policy now. All your vacation has been canceled. So.
No, it's good. Thanks for listening to Right Sides Only Radio. You can follow us at Right Sides Radio. If you're following or listening to this podcast, you can also download our app from the Google Play and the Apple Store. Just search for Right Sides Only Radio. We have an app there. All of our episodes are there each week. Take us on the road. Take us fishing.
Yeah, I mean, take us.
Listen to us nice and loud, and fly down the freeway and see if you can get pulled over. Try the window thing in the back.
Yeah, try Cliff's trick.
Yeah,
if you ever get pulled over.
Hashtag Cliff's trick.
Hashtag Cliff's trick. Yes,
saving lives.
Absolutely, man.
No, that's good stuff. Evan, thanks, brother. It was great to spend an hour with you, dude. That's always good.
It's always a pleasure. And I think I've got one more. I think we both do. I think we both have some type of escapade coming up next month, and then it looks like y'all are stuck with us for quite a while after that.
Quite a bit. We're out. Everybody have a good night.
Peace out.